In about 30 days, Nigerians will indeed know the names and, of course, faces of those who will lead the 10th National Assembly. Tonight, our attention is on the permutations and combinations in the journey to become the next president of the Senate. Babajide Ogunsoro, founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's data analyst, is here to share some insight. Great to have you on the News at 10, Babajide, once again.
As always, mine, Ayo.
All right, so is there any data or a science, really, that points to how the next Senate president will be chosen?
So again, it all depends. I'd like to just start from a slightly different perspective, and that's, keep your ears to this, Ayo. Peter and Paul, they're a group, but Peter has his identity, Paul has his identity. Nigeria as well, based on the evidence we've seen, is a group, but Northern Nigeria has its identity. And Southern Nigeria has its identity like Peter and Paul. And so when you talk about the data and the science of this, here's what it looks like. It looks like a game of cards. Let's keep this half House of Representative discussion to next week. We'll talk about this half. What does our history show? It shows a very simple trend. When the president comes from the north, the vice president comes from the south, and the Senate president comes from the north. If the president comes from the south, the vice president comes from the north, the Senate president comes from the south. So let's take a look at how this trend has been, Ayo, since 1999, this north-south-north trend. And if we take a look at the facts since 1999, we'll look at how many Senate presidents we had during President Obasanjo's term. And again, the north-south trend continues. So President Obasanjo from the south, his vice from the north, and all the 5 Senate presidents that served under President Obasanjo, all were from Abia State, all were from the southeast region in the south. Let's look at Umar Yar'Adua, president from the north, vice from the south, and David Mark from the north. The only exception was when David Mark was re-elected, when Goodluck Jonathan was from the south, and David Mark was from the north. Prior to then, the history has been steady. In simple terms, 8 out of 9 times, when the president comes from the north, the Senate president comes from the north. 8 out of 9 times, when the president comes from the south, the Senate president comes from the south. The only exception happened once, and that was David Mark, when David Mark was Senate president, even though Goodluck Jonathan was from the south. So in simple terms, the first fact shows that there's an 89% probability, you might want to call it an occurrence, that the next Senate president will be from the south. So that is the first fact. Now, the second fact is, if we're to look at our history and understand that based on history, the Senate president is likely to come from the south, the next question is, which of the regions in the south will this president come from? South-south, southwest, south-south, or southeast? Again, history shows that never has the Senate president come from the same zone as the president. So clearly, the southwest, based on history, wouldn't likely get the Senate president. So we are focusing now our focus will now be on the south-south region and the southeast region. And again, the third fact, going by history, no candidate from the opposition party has become Senate president. So what it simply means is our attention will be on who are the APC senators in the south-south and the southeast. And the fact shows that we have 13 senators. So if this were a game of poker, like it has always shown to be, the summary is we're expecting that the next Senate president will come from the south region, number one. We're also expecting that because the president is from the southwest, the Senate president is not likely going to come from the southwest. We're going to be left with a choice between the 7 APC senators in the south-south or among the 6 APC senators in the southeast. Does that mean none of the senators in APC from the northern region could become the Senate president. That it doesn't mean that. What it means is, going by history, we have a significantly higher chance that the next Senate president will be among the 13 senators that are within these two southern regions.
Well, now, which brings me to the issue of the opposition parties. You clearly talked about it a while ago while you spoke, but what will they be bringing to the table? I mean, in terms of being able to influence policies by the Senate, how will they play out?
It's going to be a really interesting 10th Senate. We have 7 political parties in the 10th Senate, but let's quickly take a look at the overview of what exactly would influence the sort of decisions and policies and the numbers we're going to be seeing in the Senate, sort of bills that we're going to be looking at. And if we take a look at the numbers in front of us, here's the summary. Let's start with the North Central region. The North Central region, the APC is strong. They have the majority. Out of 19 senators, if you look at the first row, 19 senators in the region, the APC has the majority, 11 senators. Look at the Northeast. Out of the 18 senators in the Northeast, the APC has the majority, more than half, 10 senators. Now look at the Northwest. A lot of interesting things will be happening in the Northwest. Out of the 21 senators, the APC only has 10. In simple terms, APC does not have a majority in the Northwest. The opposition parties, PDP, NNPP, have a major say about the sort of activities that will be going on in the Northwest. Now let's look at the Southern region. Southwest, 18 senators overall in the Southwest. The APC controls the Southwest in the Senate, 15 senators. The Southeast, out of the 15 Senate seats in the Southeast, the APC only controls 6. In simple terms, the opposition still controls the Southeast, and the same thing goes with the South-South. Out of 18 senators, the APC only has 7 senators out of the 18. Summary is 6 zones, APC controlling 3 zones, has the majority of Senate seats in 3 zones, which is the North Central, the Northeast, and the Southwest, and the opposition parties will play a big role in decisions in the Northwest, Southeast, and South-South.
And finally, how likely are we to see senators jump ship, at the 10th National Assembly? You hear of things, the normal saying, carpet crossing. How is that going to play out?
Very likely.
Are we going to see a large movement of
Very
senators?
likely. The judges will also, the justice system will also have to determine that. But let's look at the zones that we're most likely going to see a lot of heat, a lot of areas where the APC might want to dominate. And if we take a look at the overall, looking at which zones that are we likely to see significant change, 3 zones come up very important. The first is, let's start with the Southwest. We see the APC has 15 senators in the Southwest, only 3 available Senate seats that they don't have. So we're not likely to see a major change in the Southwest. Where we feel that there'll be a lot of drama going forward, look at the South-South. APC has 7 senators in the South-South, 11 other seats belong to the opposition party. So the South-South, we're likely to see a lot of drama going on. Let's look at the Southeast as well. The APC has 6 senators. Opposition has 9 Senate seats. We're likely to see a lot of drama in the Southeast. And above all, why this is interesting is the APC only has 59 senatorial seats. Opposition, 50. Going into this election, the APC had more seats. They had 63. So we are in a situation where the APC in this 10th Assembly, in the 10th Senate, are not as strong as they were when the 9th Senate was ending. So in the days ahead, it will be interesting to find out what will happen to APC's 59 senators. What will happen to the 50 Senate seats the opposition holds? Ayo, don't forget, like Peter and Paul, is Nigeria 1 or 2?
Definitely leave it at that. And I'm sure next week we will be taking a look at the race for the seats, the House of Representatives, for those who will be taking over there in the lower legislative chamber. Thank you so much again, Babajide Gusau, for your thoughts on the News at 10.